A couple of days ago we did a stream, and we were talking specifically about streaming and leaking. This album actually is streaming. This is something that the band themselves have made the decision to actually give their fans the access to this album via a stream on their official YouTube page. It's active right now, though if you're viewing this video after Tuesday, which I believe is the 30th of June, you won't have to worry about that because you'll be able to pick it up in your local music store. It's Thy Art is Murder, and the album is entitled Holy War. Before making news with this right here, with this stream, they had already made news, this band had, because of the cover artwork that was scheduled for this album, which depicted a child suicide bomber. And right now, distributors had indicated to them that they had to either change it or they were not going to be carried in their stores. And so they made a couple of alterations to ensure that they would get them into the stores, but you could still get this original artwork as portions of the inside cover art that you're going to see on the album, similar to what we saw with Infestistum by Ghost of BC a couple of years ago. So what can we say about these guys? They're an Australian group, and they perform that style of music that's that D word that usually doesn't spell good things on this channel, and the word that we're talking about is of course deathcore, but hear me out before you immediately decide to turn this off thinking I'm going to be going on a hate parade, because I'm not. See, Thy Art is Murder is a group that kind of looks at the concept of deathcore a little bit differently, and really whenever I listen to these guys, I only hear deathcore tendencies. Aside from that, I hear death metal. I hear death metal from these guys that just so happen to have a little bit of that same makeup, that same sound, that same noise that you're going to hear from some of the deathcore products from over here in America, such as Suicide Silence. This is a 10-track album. It's not a very long disc. It's one that doesn't even eclipse the 40-minute mark. However, within those 10 tracks, they do get a lot of things done. They have a sound that is extremely calculating. They have a sound also that's very, very heavy and aggressive. This is a brutal, brutal sounding disc for those people who are fans of this style of music. For these guys not really being labeled as a death metal product by trade, this is certainly an album that has the intensity and the aggressiveness at times of a death metal album, and that's kind of the point. I really enjoyed the way that these guys are able to create that sinister vibe that they were able to begin with track number 1, and they're able to keep up that pace and keep up that tone and never really take their foot off the accelerator all the way through. This is an album that does not actually pull punches and decide that it has had too much, or you know, that it needs to kind of cool things off or cool things down in order to appease a couple of other people. This is an album that's brutal for the sake of being brutal. Absolute Genocide is the first track, and it really showcases that ideal. It really showcases that ideal because it has that very confused, that very chaotic, and that exceptionally brutal mentality that has to be going within the minds of somebody who is crafting, creating, or participating in a genocide. And then when you go all the way through this disc, you will eventually make it to Naked and Cold, and you'll notice a couple of things. For example, the fact that this intensity has not ceased yet, and the fact that Naked and Cold is the only track on this album that eclipses the 5-minute mark. In fact, it gets very close to borderlining the 6-minute mark, but it does not. And this is the track that I think is what Thy Art is Murder and what a lot of albums actually need in order to cement an album's legacy within the ears and the mind of a listener. So often there are a lot of albums that will drop that will have maybe a memorable 3rd or 4th track or a 7th track, but they won't have a memorable final track. And I think that the final track is the ultimate opportunity for a band to become memorable. It gives them this is the last impression that you get to give a listener, so you really want to go out with a bang. And what Naked and Cold actually showcases is the fact that they have that potential, they have executed that potential, And at nearly 6 minutes in length, with the rest of these songs really running more between the 3 and 4 minute mark, they have a little bit of extra room to breathe, and they use it very nicely. They actually have the ability to write longer material and handle it just fine. So this is a great, great final song that actually does resonate in your mind based around its expert handling of pace. Overall, this is a pretty decent disc. This is certainly one that showcases for somebody that may be a little bit more prompted to say that deathcore is garbage. This, being a deathcore album per se, is something that could really turn some of these individuals around, as opposed to being an album that's just going to further perpetuate some of those tried and true tropes of this subgenre and kind of give those same individuals reason to continue to wave their fist and say, "See, I told you so." This is an album also that, because it does not over-rely on breakdowns or does not over-rely on having to drop everything and use that chugging in order to drive and motivate, has variety splashed about it as well. This is one that definitely reminds me, as I said before, a little more of a traditional death metal album as opposed to a deathcore disc. But whenever you get to dividing the lines like that, they really are very, very slim whenever it comes to the differential. And that's not a bad thing, but at the same time, it definitely shows you just how ridiculous the naming structure of some of these subgenres has really grown to become, in these recent years. I would probably give this album an 80 out of 100, just a flat 80, so an 8 out of 10. I really think that it has a lot of good things going for it. The only thing that I would kind of say against it is that at times it can feel a bit similar to itself. It's not one that has what I would consider to be the grandest scale of diversity to it. However, it is very direct and handles that direction very well. Sounds a little confusing. Sounds like I just dismissed what I previously said, but it takes that direct approach nicely, and with that being its desire, it works, but you still need to have a little bit more in the way of diversity in order to keep your audience completely in tune and in check. There are albums that I can think about where, yeah, the band is one style of music, and this is very commonplace in like thrash metal, for example. Like, for example, Rust in Peace by Megadeth is all thrash metal. It doesn't magically turn into a black metal album in track 4, but they do enough in the way of diversity while still not, taking their foot off of that thrash metal accelerator in order to really engage a listener and give them something new. You always going to have a little bit of a surprise here and there, an ace up your sleeve, if you will. Don't feel like there is enough on Holy War. Aside from that, though, I think Die Hard's Murder has really made a pretty passionate statement, not to mention it's one that is backed up by its music. But what do you guys think about Holy War? I know a lot of you guys have heard this already, considering you told me, hey, this stream was happening, I want to know what you think, and here I am, telling you what I think. What did you guys think about Holy War, though? Let me know in the comments below. I really want to know. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow, and I may have an announcement for you guys tomorrow. There may be an announcement tomorrow, so you're going to want to stick around for that. And for those of you who this is video number 1, there's a ton of others on this channel, so please subscribe and definitely check out a couple of those others. Don't be afraid to look for me. I'm not hard to miss. And stick around for the announcement as well. Tell your friends. This is going to be big, okay? This is going to be big. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.